The veteran, everybody's favorite everyman, the jack of all trades, the Swiss Army knife of Darktide, and very likely the OG Darktide character. More or less Fat Shark's answer when players said, hey, can we play as guardsmen in Darktide? They said, hey, we got the guardsmen at home. Boom, here you go. It's the freaking veteran. And for what it's worth, the veteran has had a long and storied history with Darktide, has always been somewhere in the argument for relevancy, and that isn't necessarily what I'm here to complain about today, because you saw the title, you know it's going to be me kind of tearing down some problems with this class. It's more about the fact that the veteran experience, in my opinion, is a lot more stale and a lot more mono-builded. It's a lot more the same thing every single time than it needs to be, especially for a character who, more or less on the tin, is supposed to read as a variety character, who can flex between melee and ranged, who has a more versatile, different set of skills, as well as a deeper arsenal than any other character in the game. They can be played in a much more broad spectrum of ways, hypothetically, but in reality, what I'm really here to gripe about is the fact that this does not play out. This is absolutely inferior to a number of classes, but most of all, we'll be comparing to the one who I think a ton of classes need to copy off their homework, which is obviously Skitarii. Skitarii has set the absolute gold, nay, not even gold, platinum standard to how class design should work in Darktide because of the pure, unadulterated diversity that it brings to its builds. And you'll be seeing that the diversity that we have between a lot of characters and the way they're built in this game is kind of like a facade. And then the veteran is my choice for the character that is the most criminally affected by this, because on his face, he could potentially be such a cool character. He could have so many diverse ways to play, but he is absolutely gatekept by a couple of issues. And so we're going to go through those here today, and I'm going to prescribe some new talents, some new ways that this character could be built, just some very, very simple additions could be made that could really, really diversify his playstyles and make him feel very new and different. And I want to be clear here, right at the beginning, that this is not me saying he needs to be more powerful. Even though I ranked him in the lower portion of my sort of power scaling of all the classes, I also said that I thought Arbides was in a very, very good spot, as well as in regards to his balance and his overall design for his character. He's got one or two things I would change about him, but otherwise, really no notes. But the veteran, even though he is a little bit more powerful than the Arbides, I have a lot of notes on how this guy is designed because I see so much potential here. And so let's tap into that potential, or rather, let's start by explaining where it's being wasted. And before I begin the app forthright, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of my channel members. You guys' support is the sole reason I'm able to produce this content for you full time. I love doing it. You guys love the content, it seems. I'm going to stay in the fight, and I know you got my back, especially my besties, aka my god tier members, Elise, Sai, Neva, Zret, Roach, and now Bloodsheet. Thank you guys. It means the world. It's truly, truly humbling. Let's get on with the video. As I said, let's begin with a little bit of a demonstration here about one of the most fundamental problems that the veteran has for helping him to feel like he is a diverse character that he really should be. And that's if we just go to our talents page here. I'm going to start with a blank talent loadout. And what we're going to do is we are going to allocate the points that are going to appear in the build in order to get it to where you can start to diversify this build, right? We're going to assume the baseline stuff that most every build is going to have, and we'll start from that point. So let's go. We're just going to come down this way. We're going to grab a grenade. We're going to come down straight down the middle. We're going to grab that. We're going to grab, of course, Survivalist. We'll grab Demolition Stockpile. Of course, we'll have Voice Command with Duty and Honor. And then we'll actually need to take these three nodes here as well, because we'll need to reach probably all three of these trees, and I would say 95+% of builds. Now, this is just at a baseline. If you wanted to be a little bit more honest about it, if you wanted to add in the nodes that I would say 90+% of players will be taking with any given veteran build, you would add in things like Superiority Complex, you would add in Demolition Team and Tactical Awareness, and you might even add in Precision Strikes and Fully Loaded. And then the grenades, don't forget your grenades. These are super, super powerful. Like, okay, so now we've got that in there, right? Now, look at what our point total is at, right? Even just at the start, without that stuff in there, when we were just having the barest of bare frameworks, we have only half of the remaining points to spend. And this means that every veteran build at a baseline is more or less half done before you made any differentiating choices at all. And this is something you'll see over and over again as I flick through my builds here. Notice, keep your eyes sort of like fixed, or I guess loosely fixed, but look at the nodes that just aren't changing. If we scroll down here, look at the nodes that just aren't changing between many of these. You'll see over and over and over again that nodes like these, and nodes like these are picked on almost every single build, because we have a couple of problems here. We have, number one, a problem. There are far too many nodes required to just make these what I would call the spinal column of the build, just getting it to the point where you can start to actually differentiate physically. And then we also have a ton of nodes that are more or less mandatory. Their power level is so high and they add so much to the class that playing without them would be insane. The playing without the ability to regenerate 5% of all your elite and specialist kills as grenades is insane. You would also have half as much cooldown. That's insane, right? Those sort of choices there, and then grenades, right? Of course, adding more grenades is so fundamental to this class in many configurations. It's to the point where I guarantee, let's just go ahead and pull a random fucking person off the Morningstar here, okay? Let me see if I can find a veteran. Does it show me what their class role is? I'm just gonna run up to a guy. Let's see if we can first of all find a veteran, because they're getting kind of scarce these days. Wonder why that might be. Any veterans? Any veterans? That looks like a... Oh, that's a veteran right there. Okay, let's inspect this guy. Okay, we're going to inspect this guy. Inspect. All right, what do we think we're going to see in this build? Would you look at that, right? So we're seeing, again, always confirm kill. Of course, you have to take... There's so many guaranteed crossover nodes, right? Because 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, right? In order to get just anything, there are 7 nodes you're more or less guaranteed to take. But again, what were the nodes that we highlighted? Confirm kill up here at the top. Of course, you're taking Iron Will. You could skip field improv. I wouldn't recommend it. This guy needs to change his build. You have to take this. You have to take this. You're 100% taking shout with the additional thing. This guy needs to swap from here to here, to be fair. But again, reciprocity and desperado, and over here for that range damage and precision strikes. These are default choices that you'll see over and 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 over again. And that is what's going to land you in what feels like a mono build, even though it doesn't necessarily need to be, because what we're left with to actually differentiate this character is a very, very scant amount of points. This would be what I would consider a solid baseline for a variety of different veteran playstyles, right? This could be a hybrid melee ranged fighter, right? All you would do in order to accomplish that would be to come down here and do this sort of thing. And then you just do the swap, and you'd have like 2 more nodes to spend, more or less, right? Or it could be something to do with the focus target, right? You just go focus target here, and we get a lot more focus on those big targets, something like that. Maybe you take some nodes up here as well, or it could be something at long range. It could be we could definitely take like Shock Trooper, right? That's even more nodes you're taking out in order to get Shock Trooper unlocked to play with these recon las guns. We have almost no points left to play with. Now let's compare this to the obvious comparison. The as I said earlier, the platinum standard for what builds should be going forward in this game, for what I'm really, really hoping they can do for these classes, which is the Skitarii. So let's look at the Skitarii's talent tree here, and you'll see immediately how this is different. Because look at this. Okay, let's go to our talent tree here. Let's go ahead and do a blank talent tree. Okay, so here I am. All right. So on the veteran tree, right, if I want to play with Shout Veteran, what do I do to get there? I just path down the tree, right? I can pass straight down the tree. I can make like 1 or 2 variants, but I'm still going just down the tree. There's really no 2 ways about it. In order to get to Shout, you're spending 12 points, I think it is, and that's just to get to Shout, and then you're taking 1 more node. Now, here's the difference. This tree here allows for pretty much infinite modularity and options. So if I want to play with advanced combat doctrines, I have a number of different approaches to play with this ability, right? I could come over here and say, okay, binary ballistics protocol, then threat detection imperative, galvanic marking array, ammunition restoration pod, advanced combat doctrines. And then I'd say, oh, well, I mean, this is range stuff, so I'd probably also want to take superior defense engrams, and then assassination protocols, or something like that, right? That could be one way of going about it. However, what if you don't want to take binary ballistics protocol, right? If you don't want to start with this, but you instead, you don't think that's that strong, you don't necessarily need it, you can go servo core recharge, which is weak spot generating toughness, then weak spot damage, then weak spot generates capacitance, then ammo salary. Then you'd say, do I want the reload speed or galvanic? I'll take galvanic. I'll take ammunition restoration pod. Here I am, advanced combat doctrines, right? So now I have made two fundamentally very different feeling builds because I've already set up this build here by spending an extra 1 point to go this way instead. I've set up this build here to play much more around weak spots. I'm definitely focusing my build towards a weak spot targeting build, and that will work really well with this ability, obviously, that can automatically target weak spots for you, right? So then you may be like, okay, I want to take some fire rate and critical chance. What goes really well with like fire rate and critical chance? I could go for flensing protocols and get even more crit chance, and that could be like more base damage. That could be pretty strong. But also, I might like to choose the ability to have like even more charge of this so it's up more often. And that means that something like red line capacitors would be really good. So I could come out this way, and I could go this way to red line capacitors and reach it that way. Or maybe I would want to actually fork off from where I'm at here and go around this way so I can make certain I get this crit in here. Since I have good crit over here, I get this crit generation. Then I could get even more crit here. I could make my way over here to channel motive force. I could grab artificer servo skull. I could then come this way as well. And then I could reach there, right? So adding in these optional paths, these completely optional paths, it just completely frees it up, because at its fundamental baseline here, everything is optional on the Skitarii talent tree. You don't have to take a keystone. You don't have to take an aura. It's recommended because they're very powerful. It skews builds towards wanting to have them because they'll add a lot more on average than just your regular ass blue nodes. But the same thing cannot be said for veteran, because veteran will get stuck in a situation where he just almost doesn't have enough points to spend on the keystones. And that is why when you see veteran builds, even up to current day, it's not unheard of to have veteran builds that are keystoneless, right? I think even one of my like recommended like easy peasy builds for like new players was like a keystoneless veteran build. And this is really the second big problem for the veteran, which is that he simply has too many mandatory or extremely powerful blue nodes. And because he has so few to work with, he has so few that are actually able to be like swap between builds, he more or less ends up like almost wanting to forego some of these keystones, some of these things that should be build differentiating. So think about this, right? To just take this hypothetical, and I may be right, I may be wrong, but I want you to think about your options here. You've got 2 points left in this build, and here it is so far, right? This is what the build looks like. Okay, you got 2 points left. Your choices are: do you go into weapons specialist here and take always prepared to be able to reload some ammo? Every time you get a melee kill, you'll be able to reload some of your mag, and you'll get some extra stacking crit when you're getting melee kills for one shot when you shoot your range. And then when you get a kill with your ranged, you can get 15% melee attack speed. Would you take that? Or maybe you could take the 25 flat toughness and 20% damage to Ogres and monstrosities. That sounds pretty good. Maybe you have a recon las gun or something and you want to go with this shock trooper over here. Or maybe you are going to go up here and go trench fighter drill and serrated blade. So we got 10% attack speed, and every melee hit is now applying 2 stacks of bleed. That could be very strong. For my money, and I mean this honestly, not just to make a point, for my money, this setup right here, 10% melee attack speed all the time and 2 stacks of bleed on every single melee hit is the strongest option out of these. That would be incredible. That would scale your like power so hard. And you could even, you know, from there, shit, like you could maybe even like drop agile engagement, and you could maybe even drop like the grenade thing and just take like extra toughness or something like that, like something insane. Maybe like if you're going with dagger, right, you do something like this, where now you're maximizing for the dagger. You've got enough attack speed already, but even more bleeds, and you've got so much fucking toughness, and you've got more damage to Ogres and monstrosities. We probably just added so much baseline damage to this build and so much baseline tankiness that this keystone doesn't compete with it at all. And neither does focus target. Focus target provides like generally more damage, and it can help burn down individual targets, but does it really add like a lot of flavor to your build? Not really. What about Marksman Focus? Well, Marksman Focus is like pretty deep over here, and it's behind, for whatever reason, tax nodes. Like this is probably the most like sort of niche of the keystones, but there's 3 tax nodes all in a fucking row. So you have to take one of these tax nodes to get to it for some goddamn reason. That's pretty criminal. That's a node you probably can't spam, which is probably a big reason why we don't see a whole lot of marksman focus out there in the world. So yeah, that's a really big problem. And what it leads to is players just kind of sticking to the stuff that's super safe that works on most builds. And to further prove this point, to really show you how damaging this is to veterans' identity, I'm going to show you something. Okay, so let's just go into the inventory here. Okay, I'm gonna put it on this build here. Okay, then we're gonna go to talents, we're gonna hide it. Okay, and now I'm gonna click on this build. All right, so look at this build here. What is this build doing? What's the weapon? Like, just generally, just kind of comment it below or think it to yourself, right? What weapons would work with this setup here and sort of like make the build, right? Is it maybe like the knife and plasma gun, or is it the you get like the power sword? It could be power sword and like maybe it's like the infantry auto gun or the recon las gun. It could be revolver, maybe, right? It could be something like that. We shout's pretty generalist, but yeah, okay. So keep that in mind, right? Keep that in mind. Now, joke's on you. I have no fucking idea, because this build is obviously doesn't have a keystone to it, right? It's literally as generalist it could possibly be. This build could literally be anything. I didn't even think about what was in the slots. I literally just cloned it and threw it in here. So I guess it turns out it's a recon las gun and combat blade. Sure, good enough, right? Would this build work 99 or like 95 to 90% efficiency with those 2 weapons? Absolutely 100% it would, because almost every single one of these nodes is completely relevant to any 2 weapons you would equip in this class, right? This could literally be the plasma gun and the knife, like I suggested. It could be the plasma gun and the power sword. It could be the dueling sword and whatever else is in here. Like the dueling sword and maybe not bracelet, but like shredder auto pistol, right? All these would work pretty equivalently well, and it would be really no different. There's zero way to look at this and tell what the design intent of this build is, and it works just fine, because you don't have to care, because there's no specialization needed to make this class operate at like 90% plus efficiency, and that's a problem. Now let me show you the same sort of mental experiment here on the Skitarii. Okay, so we're gonna do 2 builds here. We're gonna do this one right here. Okay, don't look at the names of the builds. Okay, just kind of like, think to yourself, what's this build about, right? Let's look at it. Let's kind of like hammer it out. So we've got some focus on system shock, retribution conduit. There's a voltaic emitter up here. This build must have something to do with like shock, right? Because it's got all this shock stuff. At the same time, we have electrostrike conduit here. We've got that. We got a lot of range focus over here. We got extra ammo, reloads, extra ammo back. We're going for power overload here. So there's a lot of focus on crits. There's a lot of focus on extra ammo and ranged stuff. We also have some support from the skull. So this must be a build that has a pretty heavy focus on ranged and electric. What weapon does that immediately make you think of? Of course, it's going to be the arc rifle, right? So this is going to have the arc rifle, and it's got the knife. What do you know? This is like my new meta best build in first Skitarii thing I put out like the other week. Okay, same thing. Let's do it again. Let's go to this one right here, and ignoring the thing again. Okay, so this time around, we have again a very different looking build here, right? We've got the cord claw, we've got Artificer Service Skull with New Spheric. That's not too creative because there's not really many other blitzes available. But this time we're coming down here, we're going for like uncapped arrest with melee attack speed. We're getting sustained assault doctrine. Then we're getting flensing protocols with melee attack speed and crit chance. So what's that about? And then over here we got these, which are going to work with the New Spheric and with the Servo Skull. But we're also grabbing these extra stuff up here for like the system shock and stuff. So, and then like even more melee crit. So this must be some sort of melee build. It's a melee focused build because we got this down here and we took this. And it's got cord claw. It's a melee focused build, and it wants to do something with crit, right? It's going to be a high crit weapon. So I would think this is either going to be the like the dagger, or it's going to be the swords, the transonic blades. there you go. It's the dagger. It's the combat blade build, right? It's Skitarii. So that is how the depiction, like the difference in these talent trees can really show you, can illustrate like, okay, you can either build it one way or the other. You can start with a weapon, like what I did here. I started with the dagger and said, how would I build to make the dagger as strong as possible in this configuration? I would definitely go this way. I would make certain it could electrify enemies. Oh, what would be good with that? Parallel, like getting brittleness on them. And then I went over here and I was like, oh, I want more crit. I want more crit chance to work with that. I want more melee damage. I want more like heavy melees. I want more general damage all around because I'm attacking so fast. And then I can just add in these extra points. Oh, well, what would be good? What's the dagger need? It needs some straight up front, like horde clear or something like that. So then cord claw would be incredibly powerful, right? So I threw that in and then new spheric plus this stuff. That's how I made this build, is I worked from the dagger outwards. Or you could work the other way. You could make a build, and then you could fit the weapons to it. See which weapons work in that same set. That is the strength of being able to build like this. Versus, sadly, what we have on the veteran here, where it's like literally these builds are almost no different. Are functionally almost no different. It's literally just down to like 1 or 2 nodes of difference between like any of these. Like, what's the difference here and here? I don't fucking know. What's this gonna be? This has all 3 of those things up there. It's got the weapon swap thing. So this has got to be something with like a melee and then like a range you need to reload. Is it going to be like shotgun maybe? It's definitely like a weapon swapping thing because it's got this one node. That's like one of the only ways you could distinguish this is these 3 nodes right here. Everything else is the goddamn same. So this is like the melee. Yeah, it's like the revolver thing. Okay, let's go back over here. Okay, what's this? It's got these up here. It's going to be shooting at range, but it's also swapping. I don't know. Is this also the same thing? Oh, what? It's plasma gun dueling sword? Okay, I mean, I guess it would be fine, right? It would be 100% be fine. This is like a meta. This is like a meta build, isn't it? This is like the meta setup. So yeah, that's the difference here. I have no fucking idea because any 2 weapons works just as well as any other 2 with these configurations. And this brings me to sort of the final point I want to make about the veteran, which is that even if we set aside the fact that the veteran has almost no points to work with in order to actually like differentiate their build and have any different sort of real play styles, they're again funneled towards the same set of builds by having completely lopsided weapons and abilities. So all I have to do to demonstrate this is just go to this random ass like Havoc Party Finder. I'm gonna refresh, I'm gonna find a veteran. Here's a veteran, okay? What do we think this guy's gonna have, huh? Let's just, any guesses? Wow, what do you know? The power sword and the recon las gun. No prizes for guessing what ability he's using. There you go, right? And no keystone to boot, right? Look at this shit. How different is this to anything that I just showed you? I would say maybe this one node would be the one node that it wouldn't take there. And this is the like general experience, right? Because if you don't take veteran shout as just sort of as a rule of thumb, if you don't take veteran shout, you are incumbent on your own performance to sort of, you know, contribute to the team. It's kind of low-key griefing, not gonna lie, to not take an ability like this that helps the team as much as it helps you, makes space and keeps everyone else safe. You're just not gonna be able to contribute as much with Executioner Stance or Infiltrate, and that's a huge delta. You will legit be like requested to play with shout if you're not. It will make a difference in winning and losing, and that's what most players care about. So you're gonna see an absolute massive overabundance of shout characters. You're also going to see a massive overabundance in, like, I would say less than 25% of the weapon choices here, because, and of course there will be players, especially in like the North America servers, that will push themselves to play with stuff that's like different because, you know, they're so bored playing with the normal stuff. But fuck, mercy on you if you're like a Hong Kong player or whatever, because then you are literally stuck playing like plasma gun. But at least in the North America servers, you'll see recon las gun. You'll see plasma gun. You might even see heavy las pistol or like bolt pistol, maybe spearhead bolt gun, but everything else is like right out. You're not going to see infantry las gun. You're not going to see infantry auto gun or revolver, vigilant auto gun, shredder auto pistol, maybe hellbore, but those are weirdos, right? And then braced out, no braced auto gun, right? All the double barrel shotgun, combat shotgun, those are all out, right? So let's just kind of like think about what you're taking if you're playing somewhat seriously. Bolt pistol, recon, plasma, heavy las pistol, spearhead, That's it, right? There's 14 options, and that was 5 or 6. That's not very good. And then melee options, I mean, it's a little bit better here because the character can be a little bit diversified, but you're kind of like power sword, dueling sword, combat blade. I don't know, only about half of these. I don't really care about the melee weapons so much, but like the power differential in these range weapons is disgusting. And so you're gonna see the same stuff over and over and over again. And then if you're playing with the same weapons over and over again, it's just kind of like Skitarii, where if you're playing with Recon Lasgun or you're playing with Heavy Last Pistol, well then you'll need Shock Trooper. So that's 2 points out of your fucking build. It's making it even more like sort of focused. If you're playing with Plasma Gun, 9 times out of 10 you're taking Always Prepared, so you can get the free reload, right? For most players. So that's again sort of pigeonholing your build and pushing it towards like one inevitable conclusion. This stuff is a funnel without you even really realizing it, because it's just kind of steering you towards the meta build, the mono build, because these are heads and shoulders more powerful than the other option. How the fuck would a plasma gun that's doing 600 damage on a hip fire, or like, you know, fucking 5,000 damage on a charge attack, how would that ever be rivaled by the braced autogun? How would that ever be rivaled by the infantry las gun, right? It's not going to be, because they're not balanced to be in the same fucking game. So yeah, that's the third and last problem I'll point out with the veteran. Now let me give you some ideas for how this class could be very simply improved and start diversifying it. Give it some interesting, breathe some new life into it, shall we say. Let's first start with some really simple stuff that I think could be done to this talent tree to shake things up, to give a new lease on life to the veteran, so to speak. I want to make this talent tree flow a lot better, give it a lot more options, so you aren't just picking in the same line the entire time. There are so many like bunk nodes in here that we're just going to cut right out, and hopefully we can also use this as a way to instruct or get players to be more adventurous and choose stuff that they aren't just choosing every single freaking game. And this is obviously a very slapdash thing. This would be done as, let me be very clear about this, Fat Shark, if you're watching, I would much prefer the full teardown and the rework a la Skitarii. The web design is amazing for that layout. I am very passionate about web design, so please give me that if that's at all an option. But if it's not, we could do something more simple like this. So what I would suggest here is, first of all, we're going to tear out these whole 2 rows. So all the grenades are getting removed and all these minor nodes are getting removed. By the way, what the fuck are these minor nodes doing here? What's the purpose? We literally could have just had these grenades just be here, and it would have been no fucking different. All this gives us is 3 minor nodes. 5% movement speed is fucking worthless. 15 toughness is obviously the one you're going to choose every single fucking time. And 10% reload speed is also fucking worthless. Who in their right mind is choosing anything but the middle one, right? And because the middle one, every node can reach the middle one, and every one of these grenades can reach the middle one, there's no reason you'd have to choose anything else. So they put the most powerful one right in the dead center. Everyone's going to pick this. No one ever picks anything else. Duh, right? It's just like a bait for like bad players to pick something else there. What the fuck is that about? I don't know. So get rid of that shit, and then take these grenades out too, and we're going to put the grenades out here on the wings. And this is something that Skitarii also does very well with. Skitarii taxes you for you going towards certain blitzes and abilities and stuff like that. So if you think about like your keystones, right, probably the most niche or weak keystone would be the power overload keystone. It doesn't have a whole lot of like upfront power on its own, and however, getting to it is all good nodes. Like you got Hybrid Combat Covenant and all those really good, powerful nodes that have a lot of uptime and a lot of use right in front of it. Compare that to the Flensing Strikes keystone, which is just straight up 20% power, 12% crit chance, 12% melee type speed. That's really powerful, right? You don't want players to get that for like basically free. So it's kind of hard. It's like, you know, there's a couple of nodes in front of it that are like, they're kind of like, I don't know about this, right? They're kind of can balance it around that. So if you've got a grenade like the smoke grenade that's like, it's kind of useful, but like most players aren't picking it, put it behind a very powerful node here. So players have more instead. They're already picking this node, right? And then so they're already picking this node. Maybe they'll pick this one because it's already free. And then you're like, oh, well, everybody's taking the crack grenade. There's a crack grenades up here, whatever it is. You'd put it down here or something behind a node that only certain builds would take. So it's kind of a pseudo tax if you do want to take this already powerful nade. And that way you can have an extra check on its power. At the same time, in order to make this like, you know, mesh better, obviously wouldn't have this layout, but we're going to take this node here that everybody fucking takes, what's that called, close order drill, and just put it right here. So what we would have is this, we go 3 talents, then we'd have these 5 talents here, and then we could move close order drill down and we'd have 4, and then you just like mesh them in or something like that. Honestly, you should probably take out covering fire and put it up here so you'd have 4, 4, and 4, and do like some X cross grid things. I always love those ones, like the Ogren has a lot of those where you like there's a cross over, but so you can like choose like one or the other path to take. That could be kind of cool. But yeah, just get that meshed up a little bit better. Down here, I think we're doing generally okay, but let's go on to my second slide here. This is the next really big change that needs to be made, which is get these fucking miner nodes out of the tree. What the fuck is the purpose of this? We put 3 grenade nodes up here, right below the auras. Okay, we're gonna come back to the auras, don't worry. But yeah, what are these grenade nodes doing here? Because first of all, we put the most ubiquitous, obvious good choice for grenade dead in the center, directly over the voice of command that everyone's taking already. And they're also completely like, if you take just this one, if you just wanted the extra grenade chance to throw, I don't know why you want that, but if you just wanted that, you can't take infiltrate, but you have to take this one in the middle. So everything is priming you to go for voice of command, right? And we have a bunch of miner nodes down here. What would be the functional difference if we just shifted this down and just made these 3 nodes be the 3 auras instead? 0% functional difference. And then you just put your like, you know, ubiquitous node that everyone's taking, if you really wanted to, in the middle, right there. You could just do that. Great, just make them all cross over and be able to reach each one. Whatever, who cares? Or make it a free pick. Make it a funnel where you get a free pick of auras. I don't care either way. But then just take these 3 grenade nodes and put them down here. But put them not where they currently are, because this node right here, generating 1 grenade every minute, is far more powerful than the other 2, obviously. 1 grenade every minute is like 30 grenades a game. So that's fucking stupid. That does not need to belong to the voice of command by default. That should be over here with the weakest ability, which is infiltrate. And then you could take the extra grenade in your pouch sort of thing, or this is the extra effects on grenade. Put that with this one over here, and then put the weakest one, which is the extra grenade pouch plus the chance to throw an extra one. Put that with voice of command. Now, granted, characters will cross over and get all of them, but just put them there so that like it's a little bit of a check on their power, I guess, in some way, some form. And then you can just eliminate these miner nodes, right? Then we got to come down here a little bit more, and we're just going to eliminate basically this entire fucking row. Almost all of this is just straight abject garbage. Let's point out how filler this is. Minus 0.25 second stamina regeneration delay. 75% range attack suppression. Fucking suppression does like not work. No one's using that shit. Toughness damage reduction medium. Wow. Competitive Urge. I've literally taken this in 1 game ever. I looked at the uptime and it was terrible, and I just never used it again. Then we have Toughness Boost Medium. Why is this not just wrapped into the fucking base class? 10% rending. That is miserably low. Like that is almost nothing, like literally almost nothing. And then over here, we have another toughness boost medium, but at the same time, we have like actual nodes to the left and right of it. So my suggestion here is that these actual 2 nodes, Skirmisher and Agile Engagement, they do belong in this tree. These are cool nodes. That's a cool design. This one wants you to move like run and gun, right? So this one should probably go like here, or maybe even here. I don't know, maybe not with like the marksman stuff, but yeah, these 2 nodes belong somewhere. I think that Close Quarters, Killzone, personally, and Marksman, these are just weird, like, kind of non-functional nodes. Like, they're just, I don't feel like anyone is taking it. Maybe you could leave them there. Who cares? But, like, yeah, just move these out of here. Get these things out of this row and put them somewhere else. Right? Just get them out of there and put them somewhere else. Because having this entire row full of, like, just junk talents, like these are either filler talents, like entire filler minor nodes, or just junk that no one's going to take and no one ever does take, and I'm certain they have statistics on that. Just get it out, and then we'll have more points to reach down here. Now you'd need some additional ways, because we've generated a couple of additional points for ourselves, so we need some additional ways to really get players to flex out, and that is where I've come up with a few crafty ideas for us. So check this out, guys. I have crafted a good number of changes to existing abilities. I've added in new talents and new modifiers to existing abilities. so that we can hopefully get players to use those points that they have, because I've cut a lot of stuff out of the talent tree, right? I've cut at least, I would say, probably 4 nodes, maybe even more of just kind of fluff filler stuff out of every build. So we're going to have 4 more nodes to spend. We should be spending that not on generalist buffs that make us like more powerful, like, oh yeah, 10% more attack speed, because that's kind of boring. We should be spending it on ways that really differentiate the builds, right? So you'll be seeing a lot of that, and I drew a lot of inspiration here. As I've been saying many times before, just steal. If you're trying to be creative, just steal from other great games. And so Path of Exile, you know, the fucking Path of Exile talent tree, obviously we're not going to steal the fact how this thing is insane, but we are going to be stealing the fact that a lot of what are called, I believe they're called keystones in Path of Exile, these sort of things are in like super cool, right? The upside and downside, the double-edged sword here, your accuracy rating is doubled but never deal critical hits, right? You would that means you don't have to worry about accuracy rating on your gear, but you will never crit. Some builds don't crit already. You have no mana, but your skill mana costs are converted to life costs. How cool is that sort of thing? That is very, very cool, and that sort of upside downside thing could add a lot of playability and it really differentiate your builds in Darktide. So let's go back to what I got here. First of all, I want to get rid of the existing auras. The existing auras are dog water. Survivalist is fine. Survivalist can stay, but Fire Team is like worthless. 7.5% damage is literally almost intangible. There's so much additional damage on any given class. I would say that at the current like exchange rate, we probably have like 50% boosted damage on pretty much every single class over their base damages through the talent tree, so they would not even barely feel this. And it's just so boring, right? Like, oh my god, the number was a little bit bigger, but you wouldn't even know, because in default Darktide, you can't see the health bars, and also like stuff is just like randomly falling over. So like this would literally have 0 impact on the game. Then we have Close and Kill, which is 5% movement speed, which again, 0 impact on the game. Players are already like, you know, 5%. Are players going to feel the difference in that? No, and it's also not going to make any difference. 5% isn't the difference between anything, because like running away from combats and stuff is really not like, that's really not the game, and also 5% is going to help you either way. So we need to get rid of these two, just scrap those entirely. And here's what I want to swap them with. Survivalist is the same, but Confidence is a new aura here. Immunity to melee stagger, very valuable if you're a melee, you know, melee veteran. If you've got melee characters on your team, pick this for them. There are certain classes in the game that do have immunity to melee stagger and stun, which is cool, but having that ability to provide that for, say, the Psyker, like the melee Psyker, or the Hive Scum, right? These characters that when they do get stunned, when they do get whacked in melee, it sucks. That would be very valuable to provide to them. I bet they'd like that a lot. Some people would probably ask for that. And then medical training, just 20% revive speed, which is a buff that I don't think a lot of people consider taking because they're not watching my content, but revive speed is very useful. Of course, it wouldn't be useful all the time, but the fact that it is everybody in coherency means that even just by being in proximity to another teammate who's helping a teammate up, you're training. You're like Jesus in that one like picture where he's got his hand on the shoulder of the surgeon and he's like, yeah, just cut him open right there, Paul. Good job. Like that's what you're doing here. You're just kind of like lending your medical know-how, and it will be tangible. It will actually be tangible. I bet people would take this a lot if they are not looking to consume ammo on the team. And then over here, we have some new talents. Now, there could potentially be something like this for melee as well, but I wanted this to be a range cluster where we are modifying our weapons for the ranged arsenal, because that's sort of what the veteran is about. He should be able to like fine tune and tweak his tools. Of course, we wouldn't be able to like add anything or change anything about the models themselves. We can definitely make them function differently by virtue of adding some talents in here. So first of all, this is going to be a cluster node that you have to come in like this. You have to pick one first. So that means that at a baseline, in order to get these, because they are fairly powerful, minus 25% toughness regen, but 25% increased maximum ammo. So you're really saying, I'm committing to the range lifestyle here. I do not care about my toughness regen because I'm staying back from the fight. I won't need as much of it. So yeah, we're not going to be able to choose these. Well, you could choose this and still be in melee. It's just going to be a little bit riskier for you, but it's probably more designed with like being a full range character in mind. But then out from here, then you can choose any of them, but they are not applicable to all weapons, right? So if you have an automatic weapon, you can make it burst fire, which would add stability, damage, and stagger. So your infantry autogun, braced autogun, shredder auto pistol, right? They'll turn into like a 3 or 5 round burst or something, and they would be like pinpoint accurate. They would do a lot of stagger. You would maybe get some headshot bonuses or something. You could boost their damage in a way, so they aren't just like, oh yeah, I just want to shoot this at chest level all the time. That would be very, very cool with some of these autoguns because they're so unstable and that it's really hard to hit targets at a distance. But if you could turn them into something where you could burst fire with them and you can just burst down a single, like a special or something with one burst, they'd be more ammo efficient and they would actually be usable. Pretty cool. Semi-auto weapons would then have this option to become automatic and gain reload speed. So this is like your revolver, your vigilant auto guns, your shotguns, right? All those would get the benefit of that, and a lot of those weapons suffer from the fact that they do have a long fucking reload, and obviously you wouldn't want to give them any more damage because you're going to increase their attack speed by making them automatic. This is also just a quality of life buff for players who are like, what the fuck, I don't have an auto clicker, I don't want to be spamming these attacks all the time. Yeah, could be really, really cool. Note this would not apply, by the way, to like Hellbore and the plasma gun, because those are charged weapons. They're not semi-automatic, they're charged weapons. And then 50% max ammo, but minus 25% melee damage. So you're basically saying, I'm going whole hog. I am a ranged character now. I will have a melee weapon, but it's going to be less effective because I'm a shooter. So I want to stay shooting most of the time. And this would really benefit like a lot of the weapons that I think struggle right now to be relevant. The reason they're struggling to be relevant is because of the ammo consumption thing, right? If you consider like what are the best weapons on the class, the recon las gun and the plasma gun are sitting up at the top of that. And why is that? Well, because they have a fuck ton of ammo. They're not concerned about running out of ammo, and they're pretty powerful to baseline. A lot of other weapons could compete with them if they had some more reserves to go around. So now your revolver is in the play. Now your bolt pistol, like, these sort of weapons, the bolt gun itself, these weapons, their downside is they don't have very much ammo, and so it's hard to do the damage that these other weapons would do because they just have infinite reserves. Those weapons will still have infinite reserves. This wouldn't make that much difference for them. Like, who's going to pick 50% extra ammo on plasma or recon and lose 25% melee damage? Probably not many people, but you definitely take this if you're going for like a ranged sniping build. So that could be a pretty cool upside downside. And then finally, charge weapons. So your Hellbore and your plasma here could get less charge time. I'm guessing like 50%, but minus damage. So you're going to be charging a lot faster, shooting out more shots. This would be amazing with Hellbore, I think, getting like more shots down range and cutting that charge time way down. This could add a lot of potential DPS, but it is like kind of like a double-edged sword. So I don't know, numbers could be tweaked, other ideas like this, but I love that like yin and yang double-edged sword sort of thing going on there. And let's go on to the last set over here. So more mutators, more additional nodes to throw on these existing talents. So let's add in more optional nodes that players can spend more points on that will differentiate them from other players using the same stuff. So first of all, one thing I think that is kind of crazy the veteran doesn't have it is the ability to like tweak his grenades. A lot of other classes have augments for their grenades. Why does veteran not have this when like his whole thing is grenades? So frag grenades, instead of right now they explode, they apply 6 stacks of bleed, right? What if this instead throws 2 grenades instead of 1, but you have only 3 stacks of bleed instead? So you could still get that 6 stacks of bleed if they're in the overlapping Venn diagram area of the explosions, but it would be playing more to the direct damage / the chaos and disruption that's caused by the frag grenades, which I think is kind of one of the primary roles that people want the frag grenades for. And then we have crack grenades. I think crack grenades, maybe giving them something to really augment their boss killing potential. So having them apply 40% brittleness. Maybe this would also lower their base damage and increase their radius so you could splash it on multiple enemies. It just becomes an armor shred grenade. I like that idea of like, okay, this is an armor breaker. It breaks the fucking carapace armor in like a radius. It weakens up bosses and targets like that. I like that idea a lot more than I like the, oh, this is just a direct damage thing that does a lot of damage and kills one target sort of grenade design. So that'd be a really cool way to modify that. And by the way, these are like additional nodes you would spend on, right? And then smoke grenades, you'd still have the base smoke grenade, but you could have an additional node that gives some of these features that have been demanded for a while for the smoke grenade. extinguishing flames, blocking gas, and the enemies that are entering in the area or in the area are slowed in their animations and their movement. So yeah, that would actually give the grenades something to do if you didn't have a bunch of like ranged enemies, right? This would be able to protect your team, and obviously you'd want to probably give it some quality of life tweaks so that you can see through it and shit, and stay inside it and actually fight. Then we have some tweaks to the abilities. So the abilities are pretty uneven on this class, but we could even them out, and we could also just give them different buffs that make them have like cool alternate playstyles. So Executioner Stance, by default, by the way, for whatever reason, they decided that this thing needs to spend additional talent points just to highlight like targets that it should already be highlighting. It's kind of crazy to me. Like, the base buff is pretty good, but the fact that I have to spend another talent point to get something that's such a mild buff as this feels like a slap in the face, considering I'm competing with fucking voice of command over here. So yeah, why don't we just go ahead and wrap those into the base thing, because people are just taking them all the time anyway, and then we could add some actual interesting buffs. So what about during your channel, you're going to gain 2% rending per second. That means that if you don't extend your channel, or maybe you only extend it one time at 10 seconds, because it lasts for 6 seconds by default, right? At 10 seconds in, you've got 20% rending, which isn't like crazy, but it's okay. But if you're actually kind of cracked and you're popping off and you're killing a lot of marked targets, well, then you are actually going to be getting up to like 50%, 60% rending. And then a lot of weapons that might not have otherwise been effective are going to be very effective at getting rid of like larger targets, carapace and bosses and stuff. And that stuff is what a lot of the arsenal for the veteran really struggles with. Is you have all these lower tier weapons. What can't they do? Well, they can't really get rid of armor, and that's why people just default to like the plasma gun all the time, is because it does that really easily. So this would be a big buff to those sort of weapons. Then we could do stacking damage on a headshot kill. So there's a lot of weapons in the veteran class that definitely want you to be precise and hit heads. That's the revolver, that's the hellbore, that's the vigilant autogun. I could go on, but like, yeah, hitting a headshot is not really rewarded anywhere necessarily, but we could add something in here very similar to the Castigator stance for the Arbites, where he gets stacking damage when he kills elites during Castigators. But this can stack up to 50%. If you miss a shot, though, if you're not pulling the hat trick, if you're not hitting sequential heads, then you're going to reset. You're going to reset down to 0. So if you are a cracked shot and you want to go for this sort of thing, you spend this extra talent point, and then you're going to stack damage. And the longer you can keep the chain going and the more heads you can hit in a row, you're going to start doing crazy damage. If you can have both of these going, you could be like one-tapping crushers and stuff, but only after you spend, however long. You'd probably have to spend like at least like 15, 20 seconds in Executioners hitting those headshots sequentially. It could be a really cool optional challenge, and you could see some crazy stuff out of players who know what they're doing, which is what I think Executioner Stance should be like oriented around. Then we have Shout down here. Shout, my biggest problem with Shout is that, like, okay, the base Shout is like almost nothing, right? It replenishes your toughness to full from wherever it's at, and it staggers all enemies within 9 meters. That's pretty okay, but like it doesn't really do anything. But it has a cooldown of 40 seconds. Who the fuck would choose this with a 40-second cooldown? That's terrible as compared to the other abilities. But then this node right here, Duty and Honor, breaks it. It makes it so stupid because it now gives you full toughness and 50 extra toughness, and your toughness is gold, and it applies to all your allies around you, and it lasts for 10 seconds after that, and they can regen it. This is stupid, but the base effect is like nothing. So why is the base effect getting the nerf? Why isn't this getting the nerf? So my change would revert that. We're going to change the cooldown on the base Shout to 30 seconds, which means if you want to not provide that buff for your allies, you could instead be the stagger bot, replenish your own toughness to full, every 30 seconds, instead of, if you take the gold toughness node, it makes it 50 seconds. Like, so we really hurt that gold toughness thing, nerfing it to 50, because it's so stupid impactful, right? It just turns the brain off. It is like, it just doesn't give you any like real options. You take that 100 million% of the time, you're taking that. You'd be crazy not to. So let's make that actually cost you something if you want to get this thing, because it is so insanely good. Also, we should take the revive node, because a lot of players are not taking this revive node, I've noticed, because they've noticed that if you have Shout, which by definition you also have Duty and Honor, then if you have that, you can probably just shout and walk up to the ally who's down on the ground and pick them up, because the Shout knocks enemies back and gives you a bunch of defenses. So like, it's pretty hard to not be able to get an ally up in that situation. If you just took this and gave it another small feature that it could do when players aren't knocked down, it could be really cool. So now you would have the ability to provide 20% move speed when you shout if you have that revive node selected for like 5 seconds. And if you haven't played with like an Ogren that has the 20% move speed when he uses the ultimate, it's very tangible. Like you can feel that big boost in movement speed. It would allow you to close a distance or make a retreat. And then you have this interesting dynamic of, okay, do I want to be doing this and the gold toughness every 50 or so seconds, or, it'd be reduced by cooldown reduction, but you get what I'm saying. Or I could keep it at the 30-second base cooldown, and I could like really get the very frequent like move speed buff for myself and the whole team, so we could stay aggressive. Yes, we wouldn't have the defense of the gold toughness, but we could be like really like always boosting into combat, because this ultimately could have like 20-second cooldown, and that 20% move speed, it is very tangible, and you would have a much better chance of having the uptime be ready when someone goes down if you have the 30-second cooldown instead. So you get to make a choice there. Do I spend the extra node and get the longer cooldown or not? And then finally, infiltrate. Make the base cooldown to 50 seconds, or no, rather, let's make it 45, because the base cooldown right now is 40. But yeah, give it 2 charges by default. I hate that they made it so that like you have to spend an extra point to get the 2 charges, because this is so like you need that, right? You need the extra charges because the veteran can get himself like out of place, and he doesn't really have any way of really quickly regenerating his cooldown like the zealot does, because the zealot just has to like fight for like 15 seconds and he's back in stealth. The veteran's going to be stuck out there for like 30. So make it 45 seconds and then give it 2 charges by default. I think that's fine. And then make there be a talent that gives you no ammo consumption for 8 seconds after stealth. Because one of the fantasies of this stealth mechanic is to play it with covert operative here, where 30% damage to range backstab attacks. So you would stealth, get in a good position behind the enemies, you would have low profile, this minus threat for 10 seconds leading stealth, and you would open up on the enemies, and they're in discord. They're just absolutely, what the fuck is going on? There's a guy behind us who's, I don't know where he is. But they would be running towards your allies, you're spraying him down the back. But the problem is like, you spend about half of that time fucking reloading your gun, and you also are probably not like getting a whole lot of ammo efficiency, because yeah, you're not anywhere near the ammo side of the tree. So it takes a lot to get over here and then maybe get like shock trooper or whatever. So that kind of really sucks to sacrifice a bunch of ammo for a spray down. If you could take an extra node here and get a spray down that is effectively free, and it doesn't have to be 8 seconds, it could be like 5 or something, right? That might be really probably more fair as far as bounce, but 5 seconds of being able to spray your infantry auto gun and kill everything in sight without having to reload, it like doesn't take any ammo at all, that would be very, very cool. And it would definitely like be the fantasy that I think a lot of players wanted with this. And then stealth. This is one node that I have wanted for a long time for the stealth here, having it be applicable to your allies in coherency, where when you press this, it will now cloak everyone else as well, which could provide a chance to reposition or advance on an enemy position. Now, maybe 4 seconds is too long, maybe it could be 2 seconds, I don't know, but enough time to break out of the current bind that you're in and reset everything and get to a better position, enough time to advance or cross across an area that's like sort of covered by a bunch of enemies. A 2-second interruption in the enemy is really good, and this would apply to everybody else. You still get the full 8 seconds, so you would stay in stealth. Everybody else just gets a brief blink where the enemies are like, whoops, and they lose track of them, and they'll reassume like lock on like a second later. That could be really cool, and I could see a ton of like teams probably wanting an infiltrate veteran on their team just for a feature like this. Because think about it, like shout, yes, it gives you gold toughness every 50 seconds, right? You could do gold toughness, and that makes you take less damage because it gives you like, gold and it knocks down enemies or whatever. But what if you had this? What if you could get a guaranteed like reset, get out of jail free reset every like 30 seconds or so in stealth and make it advances and stuff? That would be pretty cool too, because it would definitely get you out of a lot of sticky situations, and that would be very crafty. So there you go. That's a lot of cool ideas I think would be implemented. As to whether I have any hope that like something like that would be implemented, probably not terribly, because Fat Shark seems that they're going to make their own game and they don't really care to hear what I have to say. But hopefully you enjoyed hearing what I have to say. while I'm on the topic, I think one other really big thing I would love to see changed is just to have some specific weapon buffs and changes for the veteran class or for like classes individually. It's something we've seen them doing with Skitarii and Hivescum is like those classes individually have like different blessings and different balance ways for the weapons that they share with other classes. They could just be doing that for you know, having a different balance set up for each class. That way, if they buff, you know, say Vigilant Autogun or something for the veteran, it doesn't necessarily make it like broken on all these other classes that could be like hyper scaling with it, like the Hivescum and like the Skitarii. It's just a bonus idea there. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I guess this one turned into kind of a longer one, but hopefully you enjoyed. I love theorizing about stuff like this. I love home brewing, and maybe we will see some cool changes in the future for the veteran, my dear boy. And I'll see you guys next time with another one of these classes. Bye bye. Have a good one.